Howdy, partners.
Hey, howdy.
Just got back from Wyoming. Mary and I rode out on horses, and 4,100 miles on our trip, so we're a little bit saddle sore. And as Rich would say, that's no bull back there. Okay. Today's fine day goes to the Alzheimer's Association for their research. And again, we've got a summer-like crew here, so belly up, get those dollars out so we can start collecting the fines. A couple of things I wanted to mention in regards to announcements. We've got the Hudson Festival Days coming up, and I know a lot of you are volunteering or will be attending the different activities. Shop Hudson on Main Street. You'll notice again the construction continues. It has hurt their businesses in regards to the amount of construction. I was talking to Dan, and again we mentioned short-term pain for long-term gain in regards to all the work that's being done down there. It's going to be fantastic when it's done, but a couple of those companies are hurting, so please use your feet and travel into some of those shops to give them their business. We've got Farmers Market coming up, concerts on the green, and Screen on the Green. A lot of activities happening in Hudson, so hopefully you'll take advantage of that. Okay, Rotary members in the news. I think we had a picture of our volunteers at the Scout Camp, right, Rich? Rich did a great job organizing that again. We cleaned up the pool area, and if you can see that particular crew, according to Rich, if you look at the far right, Den Rich is there with a mop, and he's got it the wrong way. And that's, I think he said that's the way he used it the whole time, too. Didn't get a whole lot of work out of Den. But Evan, Rich, Clinton, Kelly, Joe, and Den, they remind me of one of the old rock groups, Motley Crue, right there. But great job by those guys. None of them had pins. So if you could put $1 up there, Evan's going to collect on that side. Chris is over here. So if you're in that picture, let's give $1 for not having that and make the rest of us feel bad. I've got a picture here. Phil Herman is not here. From the hub, he is with the safety goggles, and it's for the Bloodhound Rocket Race, and we'll tag him later on. Another picture we have, our own Gail Royster, who's the head hostess. Gail, great picture there, no mention of Rotary. If you could pay $1, Evan, she's right behind you there. Great pictures in the hub of the gala. And Father Joe Boisel with his bow tie, his lovely wife. Again, no pin, Joe. I think that's worth $2, okay? We've got, oh geez, yeah, Ron and Den. Den's got his pin on. And Ron, I don't see one on you, and Den, I don't see a name tag. So Den, $1. Ron, give $1 over there too. And look at the smiling face of Bob Cramp and his lovely wife. Bob, where you at there, buddy? No pin. Yeah, give $2. That's good. You got it out there. Okay.
And I'll cover Phil.
Okay. All right. Okay. James has got Phil covered there. All right, we got another picture of the Memorial Day Parade, another great event. It was a beautiful day for it. We've got Chief Robbins in the picture, and he's got his little pad out, and apparently he's giving a ticket to somebody driving an old pickup truck that was speeding on Main Street during the parade. And lo and behold, it was Ron Strobel, and he mentioned that he was friends with the mayor. And Chief Robbins gave him an extra $50 fine for that, trying to influence him on that. So Ron, if you could pay $1, that'd be greatly appreciated. We got a great picture of our scholarship winners in the hub, and I'm really happy again that our group gets to participate with service learning and do things like this to get to know the high school kids and how great they are. But a beautiful picture. We've got Phil, Catherine, and Dan Williams with them. They've got their pins, they've got their badges, so there's no fine, but a great picture for them. So good work on that one. I'll get you later. I'll get you later. Okay. I think that was it for that. Oh, we've got a story about the races. You know, again, it's kind of a Western theme, but one of the things I wanted to mention is that I didn't get a chance to talk about the Kentucky Derby before, but I think my horse was Thunder Snow. Anybody remember what Thunder Snow did during the Kentucky Derby? He bucked out of the gate, and that was my bet, and that's how good I am with the horses. But I've got a story about a couple of our members that are into racing, and I'm going to, again, not use names because this involves gambling and that type of thing. We don't want to get anybody in trouble. But if somebody could throw out a female's name for me that's a member of our group, just, you know, again, we'll make up a name and a story. Okay, Donna. Excellent, Donna. Okay. And one of our guys, James. Okay, James. Good. Okay, so James is he loves the horses, he loves the ponies, and he goes to the track quite a bit. It doesn't say he has a whole lot of success, but at the same time, a couple weeks ago, he went out to one of the local tracks and was in the process of losing his shirt in the first couple of races. He just couldn't pick a winner, and about the fourth race, he noticed that Donna, who's an ecumenical minister at St. Mary's, again, is fictitious, but anyway, an ecumenical minister helps out with communion and does various tasks during the service. So Donna stepped out on the track in the fourth race, and she blessed one of the horses, and James was watching this and, you know, didn't know what to make of it, and all of a sudden this was a kind of a long shot, and the darn thing won. So in the fifth race, James is kind of looking around the corner there to see if Donna stepped on the track again. Lo and behold, she steps out again, and it's another long shot. James sees the horse, runs to the thing, bets a couple of bucks, long shot, and he ends up winning. And this goes on for the sixth race and the seventh race and the eighth race, and next thing you know, James has got a big wad of cash in there, and he's just loving this. There's 12 races on the card, and it comes up to the last one, and he is really fired up because, you know, Donna's really blessing these horses, and he's all into it. So he ends up looking down the track, and the 12th race, this horse is 100 to 1. And it is a sway back old horse. Looks like it can hardly stand. And Donna gets out on the track, and she blesses his eyes and his ears and his nose and his hoofs. And James runs to the ATM, takes everything out of his bank account, takes everything out of his pocket, throws it on there, and watches the start of the race. Well, it was kind of like Thunder Snow. This horse walked out of the gate, stopped about 10 yards down, and didn't move, didn't finish the race. James is devastated. He lost everything. He finds Donna. He says, "What the heck is going on?" He says, "All day long, you've been blessing these horses, and they were long shots, and lo and behold, they were winning. In the last race, I bet everything I had. I lost everything, and your horse that you blessed didn't even finish." And she goes, "Well, James, are you Catholic?" He goes, No, I'm Jewish." What a coincidence, James said. He said, well, that's the problem. He said, "You don't know a blessing from the last rites." Okay. Okay, all right.
Which is why I have no money for the fines, because I'm totally out.
We have our whose quote is it anyway? Again, get your dollars out. This has been absolutely horrible. You guys are really pathetic in regards to knowing your facts. But how many people have been out to Wyoming to see the national parks? Raise your hands if you've been out there. Got a nice sprinkling of people there. We got the Grand Tetons. I mean, the Rockies are great, but the Grand Tetons are right there, and they go straight up. I mean, there's no foothills or anything else there. Yellowstone is a tremendous place in regards to a national park. There are only 500,000 people in Wyoming, and they're just wide open spaces, all kinds of flora and fauna, et cetera. But I'm going to throw some facts out to you, so we're going to start off with this side. And if you can get the answer, again, the other half is going to win. So from George and Ron over. We've got competition. And this side, Evan, get ready to collect all this money because I know these people are going to get it, and they're going to probably have to pay on the opposite side. How many acres in Yellowstone National Park? 5 seconds. Bam! 2,221,000 acres in the Yellowstone. So again, pay a buck. Please put your hands up. It was not a good performance, but I know this side of the room is going to be a lot better. Is another one about Yellowstone. When was the park established? What year? 1902. Excellent guess. 1872. It's the first national park in the world, Yellowstone National Park. So if these people over here can pay a buck, okay, I got to be in. All right. Okay, we got 2 more questions. On this side, I know you guys will get this one. This one's an easy one. How many geysers are in Yellowstone National Park? 300. Excellent guess. 500. Pay a buck over here. Half the world's geysers are in Yellowstone National Park. Can you believe that? Another easy one over here. These guys, I mean, they're just very confident, very confident. How many acres did John D. Rockefeller donate to the Grand Tetons National Park? Personally, all of them. Very good. That was good. Ooh, excellent guess. 33,000 in 1942. In 1943, get your hands up with your buck, 33,000. In 1943, President Roosevelt, again, this is, you know, everything else was happening in our country, but he combined it with public land for over 220,000 acres for the Grand Tetons. So again, it's much smaller, but it is, again, a majestic site. So if you haven't been out there, put that on your bucket list. Church signs in Jackson Hole. Again, I look around, Joe always tells me because he's looking for things to put up in front of his church in regards to that. But as we were traveling around, there are a lot of churches in Jackson Hole. It's a very busy place. But the first sign I saw was Bill Benson and Jesse Carter were married on June 3rd in our church. So ends a friendship that began in their school days. Very, very sad sign. Here's one about one of those, you know, typical church type things. A bean supper will be held on Tuesday evening in the church hall. Music will follow. Come on, that was a good one. Okay, here's one at the Catholic Church. At the evening mass tonight, the sermon topic will be, "What is hell? Come early and listen to our choir practice." And you know how, again, churches are into a lot of meaningful programs and that type of thing. The last one was, Weight Watchers will meet at 7:30 p.m. in the church. Please use the large double doors at the side entrance. Not very good. Okay, Bad Boys table over here. Wherever Dick is, it's a Bad Boys table. So, all right, here's a quote from, you know, again, I'm kind of got rabbit ears and that type of thing. One of them, and I don't know which one said that, it could have been Jay. "I fear my neighbor may be stalking me. She was Googling my name last night on her computer. I saw it clearly through my binoculars." Gail, Gail lives close to him. Okay, be careful. All right, the bad girls table, and we only have 2, so I don't know which one of you said this one. "I have a bumper sticker that says, 'Honk if you think I'm sexy.' Some days I just stop at a green light till I start feeling good about myself." A buck for you guys over there. All right. Okay. Change hats. Okay, we got birthdays. Again, we will just introduce. We're not going to do the their save the world type things on their birthday wish. But Gail Royster's birthday was on the 7th. Is that right, Gail? All right, and she's celebrating another anniversary of her 39th birthday. Evan McCauley was on the 10th. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Bob Cramp on the 13th. Is that right? Phil Tobin on the 24th. And Phil, I think that was 84? 1833. Yes. All right, let's have a nice rendition of Happy Birthday for our birthday people. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Okay, here's an interesting one, and we're going to have a fine, so again, take out an extra buck, because I don't think too many of you guys are going to be able to match this one. Gene and Joe Zapatowski celebrated a wedding anniversary, I believe, on June 10th. Is that correct?
That was it.
That was it. They happened to be, had their marriage ceremony in 1950. Is that correct? I got that right? So that's 67 years. Let's have a nice round of applause. Not for Joe, but for Jean. Let's give her a nice round of applause, putting up with this guy for all those years. Okay, anyone not married for 67 years, please pay $1.
Are those new boots?
These are toad stickers. These are the old ones, man. I can hardly walk in these things. Okay, happy news. You donate for any great news. Evan, you got all these people. Keep moving there, buddy. Look at this guy. You can tell he's in investments. Any happy news? We got, oh, Rich, you got happy news?
I do. My daughter just graduated from Hudson High School, and I have no more children at home.
An empty nester.
Boomerang.
Yeah, the boomerang effect. James.
My granddaughter and her husband were not able to conceive naturally, so they did the in vitro route, which most of you know takes several months to get through. But anyway, she went to her second sonogram recently, and lo and behold, the one fertilized egg they implanted is now 2.
Fantastic. All right.
We're expecting twins.
That's great. Any other happy news?
Well, I don't know if I could top that one. But okay. So for my 3 daughters, my oldest just got a promotion. My wife and I aren't quite sure if this is happy news, but she was promoted to narcotics detective in the Cleveland Municipal Housing Authority. The middle one got into business school at Wharton, where a couple of us went. And my youngest got a research position. She just graduated OSU, wondering what's going to happen next, and got offered this research position. So,
All right, that should be worth a couple of bucks there, Chris. Tag him. Anybody else? Oh, Gail.
I've said this before, but I'm so proud, I'll just do it again. Lieutenant Heather Royster graduated from Miami University with the Distinguished Graduate Award, and she will be deployed at Goodfellow Air Force Base in the middle of nowhere in Texas.
Congratulations. That's great. Okay. Oh, Evan.
All right, so this Fine Day is benefiting the Alzheimer's Fund
Yes.
in Hudson, The Longest Day. On June 21st, I've sponsored an event at Switching Gears. It's a spinning studio in Hudson. And if anyone's interested, we have shifts throughout the day. If you want to come out for a 45-minute spinning class, just shoot me an email and I'll hook you up with a time.
Very good. Dan, you have to get in on that, Mr. Bike Rider. Okay, last thing is, this is a saying from Will Rogers, since we have a Western theme today. If you find yourself in a hole, the first thing to do is to stop digging. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Next, our speaker today, the introduction, Jim Ahern. If you do the honors, please.
Morning, Rotarians. It's going to be a real honor to introduce our speaker here. And I know a growing news reporting and awareness of opioid overdoses is in the news at an increasing rate. Interestingly, I heard a statistic in just Cuyahoga County. Last year, there were more deaths due to opioid overdoses than there was murders, suicides, and car accidents. And I heard one just recently that in about a 2-week period of time, there's about 20 folks that overdosed just in Cuyahoga County. So this is obviously a serious problem everywhere, not just Cuyahoga County. So it's a real pleasure that Greg McNeil, who is a Hudson resident, is here, who founded Cover 2. He founded that in memory of his son, Sam, who lost his life in 2015 due to a heroin overdose. The mission of Cover 2 is to provide education and advocacy for families with loved ones struggling with opioid substance abuse disorder, commonly known as heroin addiction. To date, Cover 2 has produced over 100 PPT podcast episodes, and that stands for People, Place, and Things, in making a difference in the opioid epidemic. Additionally, Greg and Cover 2 have identified and helped implement numerous programs to help fight the opioid epidemic in northeastern Ohio, including quick response teams and drug-free clubs of America. So it is a real pleasure and to welcome Greg McNeil. Let's give him a Rotary welcome.
Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate that. I am delighted to be here today because something that an overriding theme of today's talk is about the difference makers in the epidemic, and it's leaders in the community, leaders like you. That's what's going to make the difference overall, over the long pull. And something that we just desperately need in America today is people that are willing to step up and take the lead. And so, again, I'm just delighted to be here because I'm among leaders today. And the opening today was just terrific. Ed, that was fantastic. I haven't witnessed that before, so I'm enjoying myself today so far. So starting off very good. My family's life changed forever on October 23rd, 2015. We lost my youngest son, Sam, to a heroin overdose. And just, let me see here. There we go. We were blindsided because just a little bit less than 12 weeks earlier, we as a family were celebrating a great event. My son, Matthew, pictured in the middle here, it was his wedding. And my daughter, pictured to the right, Amy, who, if you've heard any of our podcasts, she's the one that does the introduction and to all of our podcasts, the introduction and the outro, as we call it. And then finally, Sam, over on the left-hand side. As a father, I couldn't be more proud of my kids on this day. And probably, I'd have to say I was the most proud of Sam. Sam had struggled at this point for a number of years with heroin addiction, and we felt as though he had overcome that. In 2010, we as a family were thrown into crisis because that was when we learned by just happenstance that Sam had a heroin addiction issue. Amy actually found him in the basement. He was passed out and there was a needle nearby, and that was that. The family just was thrust into crisis. We got him into IBH over in Akron, and he went through their program, and he did really well. And then about 6 months later, he ended up relapsing. So as a family, we thought, well, this didn't work going locally. Let's go ahead and send him out of state. Let's get him out of the area. Maybe that'll work. So we sent him to Florida, to Palm Beach County, the Boca House. Once again, he went through, and he did pretty well. He got out. He stumbled a little bit, but all at once, in the summer of 2015, everything came together in his life, everything. I mean, he had a great job. They just loved him. He was the sales leader for their organization. And he fell in love. His girlfriend and he were very happy together. And they were expecting. That fall, they were expecting. So on the morning of October 23rd, we just thought we were really in a good place. Sam kissed his girlfriend goodbye. She went off on a church retreat for the weekend, and he went into work. Midday, he pulled his boss aside and he said, you know, I'm not feeling real well. Do you mind if I take the afternoon off? Boss said, sure, no problem, Sam. Well, Sam texted his guy. The old triggers came back, and who knows what he was thinking. Maybe it was just that, well, everything is going along so well, I can take this one time, once again, and step out. But that was the last time. The heroin that he got that day was heavily laced with fentanyl, and they found him the next day, and alone in his game room, and he was gone. That was that. So as a family, we were crushed, absolutely devastated. And after recovering from numbness, I thought back to many talks that Sam and I had. As Sam got further and further into the grips of addiction, the more he wanted to reach out to others and help them. And there was a number of times that he and I talked about. He wanted to do something so that others wouldn't go down that same path that he went down. So something that I always thought we would do together, here I am today talking about our foundation. Our foundation is Cover 2, and the reason it's Cover 2 is because, number one, in memory of Sam loved football. He, and for those of you that know and follow football, probably most of you in the room, Cover 2 is a very popular defense, and Sam was a defensive back. Probably more profoundly, though, we as a family, we thought that we had things covered. We thought that this was nailed, but we didn't. We were inadequately prepared as a family. And it's our mission to provide the education and advocacy for other families and communities so that hopefully they have it covered. And that's what Cover 2 is all about. And that's where we got our name. So for our first initiative, we decided to do a series of podcasts. And I'd never done a podcast before, but I thought, you know, this is probably, particularly for the younger generation, this is probably a great way to get the word out there. So I started off on a little bit of a mission to really kind of find the smoking gun, if you will, try and really figure out why the heck this happened. Why we thought everything was good. How did this happen? So I went and I interviewed the recovery facilities, both of them, that Sam went to, and went through his records and, you know, talked with him about it, but really didn't, you know, we had a couple of nice podcasts, but I didn't find what I was looking for. Next, I interviewed the detective, did a podcast on that, and that provided a little bit of information. It was kind of good because we walked all the way through. He walked me through Sam's phone, and you know, here's where he texted him. Here's when they, you know, made their hookup and everything, and it's like, well, wait, this looks like the smoking gun right here. It looks like, you know, we have evidence. We could go after these people. No, it's just circumstantial. No, you have nothing there, he said. So next, back in town here, or back in Northeast Ohio, I interviewed a well-known treatment provider by the name of Tom Stuber and showed him Sam's records and said, hey, what can we learn about this? And he said, well, there's really a lot here. First of all, and here's the biggest lessons that he talked about is everybody that's going through this, just about 100%, they relapse at some point in time. Relapse isn't failure. It's not failure. In fact, relapse, when folks get into recovery, it's something that is a process that they really, really have to work at, and oftentimes they're going to stumble. So it's like climbing a mountain. They take a few steps, don't go to the bottom, don't start all over, just keep on going from the next to the next to the next until you've made it in long-term recovery. That seemed to me to be just profound. So there are several other things that we talked about, but I felt as though this gentleman had such a wealth of knowledge that this is a concept that really we need to expand and touch on all of the issues associated with this terrible disease. So that's what we did. And that's how the Cover 2 PPT podcast series came about. And I don't know if, how many, I'm sorry? Is there a video coming up? You know what? No, we're not going to do that video. It's a little long. So, ultimately, our series, it evolved to the Cover 2 PPT podcast series, and that's People, Places, and Things Making a Difference in the Opioid Epidemic. And the reason for that name, for those of you that have loved ones or friends that have been affected by this, you know, in recovery, the thing that they have to do is stay away from the old people, places, and things. In essence, they have to completely rebuild their lives. So what's happened is, over the course of the last year, we've produced about 100 of these episodes, and in the process, what we've done is learned a series of lessons, both that I feel are profound, that must be passed along to other families, but also we found programs that I think can be picked up and implemented here in Northeast Ohio and probably throughout our state. So I'd like to share just a few of those with you. This has been talked about quite a bit as of late, and I think every family needs to understand this, that what we're dealing with here is a chronic brain disease. What we're dealing with here is something that, you know, most of us just can't comprehend how their brain works, because in essence, once they've become addicted to opioids, their brain's hijacked. It's a chronic disease that we need compassion in addressing it, just like any other disease, heart disease, diabetes, you name it. And so Hollywood though, would sell you on the fact that, okay, go away to recovery, you know, to rehab and spend about 30 days or so and everything's good. That's not it. Recovery is lifelong. And so the family, the community, and the individual who's struggling with substance use disorder absolutely have to commit to a whole life that's brand new. Here's one that's just we didn't know about, and it's just so profoundly important for someone who's going through this. It looks glamorous to send someone away to Arizona or Florida or whatever for recovery, but the fact of the matter is, when you make that decision that we're going to send them outside of this area, you make a decision for in many cases for life, because they're going to go remote and they're going to rebuild their lives. Part of recovery is these peers. Part of recovery is these relationships that they build, this team that they build. And when you send someone away out of the area to do that, they're going to build that, and then they're going to come back and either A, they have to build it all over again, which can be done, but you need a strategy for that, or B, they're just going to fall back in with all of the people, places, and things that they were with before. Your potential for relapse is just huge. So that's something that normally you're not going to be told that if, as a family, you send a loved one away. One size doesn't fit all. In fact, in the recovery community, there's just a big bias in many corners to abstinence, which means not using anything to help recovery at all, not using things that are talked about are Suboxone, which is something that gives them a little bit of relief, if you will, as they're going through recovery. Or Vivitrol. Vivitrol is something that absolutely will block their receptors in their brains so that they couldn't even get high for 30 days. It's a shot that they take every 30 days. So even if they go out, they're not gonna get high. So the reason to mention this is that if you have a loved one or you're exposed to a loved one in recovery, gosh, these things are things that have to be looked at, as opposed to going into a program blindly and just saying, well, okay, whatever the program is, that's fine. It's whatever's right for the person who's going through this. And I hope that this isn't too much detail for you. I mean, these are the lessons that all of these lessons, gosh, I wish we would have known these things as a family to advocate for Sam back when he was going through this. Pink cloud. What this is when, you know, again, we all kind of know probably what detox is. Your body is just riddled with this stuff, and so you go into detox to rid the body of that, so that you get through this 5 to 7 day period of, you know, cramps and throwing up and all that stuff. The body is done with it, but the brain isn't. The brain isn't. People don't realize that for 35 weeks to more than 2 years, your brain is still recovering from it. It's still not thinking right. So when you put somebody into a program and they're in there for just 30, 60, 90 days, their brain, they come back out and guess what? They can be 120 days sober, and they can wake up one morning and it's just like they used the day before. They're just so vulnerable. It's just, and so that's something that everybody needs to know is that this thing, if you look at it in terms of a planning horizon, they're not going to be safe until well into this, into the recovery. And by well into it, I'm talking about 35 weeks or more, and the brain is beginning to clear from all of this. In April, we had a great event, and we brought the author of Dreamland to town. And any of you ever hear of this book, Dreamland? Okay, just a couple of you. This is just a fascinating book. If you have an interest in how the heck we got to this point with the opioid epidemic, this book profiles the whole thing and brings you all the way through the process. It's just fascinating. It brings you back into the 80s, talks about the evolution of it, and then in the 90s, the game changer, Oxycontin coming out, the most powerful and most addictive painkiller that we've ever experienced, and the impact that had when doctors, physicians started aggressively treating for pain and being compensated based upon their ability to satisfy their patients and take them out of pain, and being sold by the pharmaceutical companies on the fact that this stuff, they said, was not addictive. In fact, they used just an op-ed piece to convey to them and convince them it was less than 1% of the patient population would get addicted using this. So they very, very seriously started prescribing this stuff and got people hooked like crazy. And what happened next is when the physicians figured out that they were hooked, the patients were hooked, well, they said, I can't prescribe for you anymore. So as a result, all of these pill mills, as they call them, sprung up. Pill mills are these little shops, and they had a bunch of them in our state, where a doctor would fly in and he would sit behind the desk, and all day long he would see patients for just 5 minutes or less, no real exam, and he's writing scripts, one script after another. And they just would have people in some cities lined up around the block because these folks were just, they were all hooked and they had to have it. And ultimately what happened was Mike DeWine shut down those in our state, and many other states did that. And the opioids and these pills, Oxycontin, oxycodone, all of the others, those are in essence the same chemical compound as heroin. So what happened was when these people that were hooked got shut off and all these pill mills got shut down, they went to the street, went to heroin. Heroin also was much, much less expensive. In fact, on the street, these pills Costs about 80, 90 bucks uphill. One dose of heroin, 10 bucks. So big difference economically. So that's kind of how we got into this mess. If you really want to get into a great book and learn about it, this book, phenomenal, Dreamland. So one of the profound things that Sam mentioned, though, when he was here, is it's communities that are really going to make the difference in this. And that stuck with me. So I want to just real quickly talk about a few things that are really, really important that are happening in Northeast Ohio, where communities are making a difference. And this is really harm reduction here. Let me properly introduce this topic, harm reduction. What's harm reduction? So for an addict, we as a family, we can't make them go for treatment. We can't make them want to recover. They have to recover. They have to want it themselves. That's the way that it works. You can't guilt them into it. It has to be time for them. And in the meantime, we as a society need to keep them safe. And that's kind of what harm reduction is all about. And they're going to use regardless. And so if we as a society want to protect them from disease, from harm, things such as the needle exchange are a necessary thing, absolutely necessary. And in Cleveland, that's on the Cleveland needle exchange, that's how many needles they gave out last year. And you know, you look at that and you think, well, that could be enabling. But the fact of the matter is, until they decide to clean up their lives and everything, until they decide that they really need help and that they're going to get help, they're going to either use dirty needles and get sicker, HIV, Hep C, or not, you know, or clean needles. And the great thing is, they don't have HIV occurrences and Hep C a bunch in Cleveland now. It used to be a big problem, a real big problem. Project Dawn. How many of you have heard about Project Dawn? That's deaths avoided with Narcan. Again, there's really heavy stuff for this time in the morning, but this is such a phenomenal program because it makes Narcan available to anybody that wants it. And Narcan is the spray, or in essence, a nasal thing where if somebody's overdosed, anybody can learn how to do this. It takes a very short period of time, and you can bring them back to life. And that's what you hear on the news all the time, is about people that are bringing others that have overdosed back to life. And you'd be surprised in the situations that this comes up, and we're hearing about it more and more, where, you know, somebody's at a McDonald's and they overdosed in the parking lot or whatever. And so making this readily available to people that you would never even believe would need it. But sure enough, training them takes a half an hour and bam, you save a life. And here in our state, we've saved, in Cuyahoga County alone, we've saved quite a few lives since the program began. Know the risks. This is a campaign that I think is really, really a great campaign that was started by Cuyahoga County just, 3 months ago. And this is a dramatic campaign. You're probably going to see more and more about this in the months to come. And it is stop you in your tracks kind of visuals that they put together on this. And the point being, hey, stop. Before you take that prescription and get it filled, stop and think about it. Are there alternatives? Do you really need this? And I think that we, as leaders, really need to take a look at that for our families, for our communities, really helping them get that message out that, you know, you don't have to necessarily take medicine and take painkillers for every single ailment, if you will. So, I want to talk just a second here about fentanyl and the fact that most of the heroin that is in Ohio and in this region right now, most of it is laced, as you've probably heard, with fentanyl. So heroin is, you know, most people get hooked starting on heroin, and then they think that they go to their dealer or whatever and that they're just getting straight heroin, and most of them are not. They're getting fentanyl mixed in with it, and fentanyl is 50 to 100 times the strength of heroin. So therefore, these folks unknowingly are overdosing in many cases, and it's taking much more of this Narcan to bring them back, because the stuff is it's just much more potent than what they had planned on. This is just, it's uncomfortable stuff to talk about and to think about, but again, in harm reduction, there's a way now where they can test for this in advance, so they know about it, and so that they can be a little bit safer. And on NPR, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I heard about a trial that is happening over at St. Anne's Harm Reduction in the Bronx to trial these little, it's like an EPT test strip. So these folks, as long as they're using, they can test prior to use and stay a little bit safer. And what they've proved in the Bronx is that people that use this are 10% or 10 times more likely to change their use habits, and 25% less likely to overdose. So it can be real powerful in terms of harm reduction, and that's something that the Needle Exchange is going to be piloting. In fact, they're going to start that in the next couple of weeks. We brought it to them, and they said, yep, that's for us. We want to keep our people safe. Recovery. I don't know if any of you heard of this, but quick response teams, any of you read anything about that in the paper? Back last August, my sister actually read in the USA Today article about all of the overdoses in the Cincinnati area. And you may recall this last summer, where carfentanil came into the area in Cincinnati, and all at once it kind of blew up. It was horrible. But they had a little blurb in there about this community just north of Cincinnati called Coleraine, and how, for them, they took a unique approach to addressing the overdoses in their community, and it was making a difference. So we contacted them, met a gentleman by the name of Dan Malloy, and he told me about how they send a 3-person team into their community once a week, and they spend half a day knocking on doors. This team consists of a policeman, a firefighter, and social services. And once a week, they're knocking on the doors of all the people that have overdosed in the community that last week. And what's happened is they offer them help. They offer them a pamphlet that has all of the resources that are there for recovery in their community. And ultimately, 80% of the people who they talk to have made it into treatment. They had a 35% drop in their overdoses in their community. And so we brought Dan and his team up in December. We had a little workshop. We had 15 communities that attended that workshop. Green was gracious enough to host it. And I'm happy to say that today we've got 10 of these quick response teams up and rolling in Summit County, and these will make a difference. How are we doing time-wise?
Getting close.
Getting close, okay. I want to flip through and talk about a couple of other programs here. Drug court. This is something that, again, I really didn't know about, but this is something that really helps people get into recovery. I had the great pleasure of going to drug court and witnessing it in Judge Mataya in Cuyahoga County, his court, and they're doing some tremendous things. What drug court is somebody has some charges against them, and they use that as leverage. And the people that decide that they can trade that, in essence, for agreeing to terms and going through this supervised program whereby they're held to task, and they have to go to meetings, and oftentimes it involves treatment, social services, and this program is working, and it's working really well. And they are graduating a lot of people that make it back into society and become very, very successful members of society. So drug court is a great thing, and it's spreading throughout Ohio. And prevention. I got to get better at my aim here. My aim is a little off here. A program that we found in Paterson, New Jersey, is a program by the name of ALTO, and that stands for Alternatives to Opiates. What they did was they trained up all of their attending physicians in the ER so that they could use opiates as a last resort for pain management. And they had 78 physicians that they trained. They had all these protocols that they went through, and ultimately they've had it in place about a year and a half now, and they've reduced by 50% the opiate prescribing in the ER. And better yet, they've got, in the community, they have soccer moms that go out of their way when their kids are injured to bring them there because they know they're going to be taken care of in a very responsible way. This is something that I just became aware of over the course of the last 6 months here, how vulnerable our kids are as they grow up. Their brains do not mature until they're 24, 25 years of age. And first use. If you can delay first use of even alcohol until kids are past 21, you drastically improve their odds of not having an issue later on. And if you look, many of our kids are starting way, way young, 13 and younger. And when they start at that age, clearly a third of them end up having addiction problems in their life. So one of the answers that and something that we found are something called Drug-Free Clubs of America. We discovered this about, that was also last summer. This program, it was founded 12 years ago down in the Cincinnati area by a couple of firefighters that they said, well, how can we do something about this? How can we stop the opioid epidemic? And what they decided is, we're going to stop this before it starts. So we're going to turn the kids into leaders. And ultimately, they came up with this program that incents the kids to not use, and it rewards them for good behavior and being leaders. So the kids in high school first, and then grade school or middle school, they randomly or they voluntarily sign up for and get into the program via drug testing. They get tested to get into the program, and then they become card-carrying members. And as card-carrying members, you get the whole community on board, businesses, to recognize that. And they go out into the businesses, they present the card, and they get discounts and rewards. Some of the businesses that are hiring people in the summer months will even offer to give them a guarantee of an interview. So it's very powerful in the communities that are up and rolling. But the thing that I really love about it is the fact that the kids determine what the benefits are going to be in the schools. And in doing so, it turns them into leaders. And so we did a little workshop on this here in February. We invited, it ended up being 10 schools throughout Summit County that participated in our workshop. And I'm happy to say that we've got 4 of them that are going to be starting these Drug-Free Clubs of America this fall. And we're going to start growing some leaders in our community, and they're the ones that are going to make the difference over the long pole in the opioid epidemic for their generation. I want to wrap up with our overall challenge here, and probably the most profound thing that I've learned over the course of the last 20 months since we lost my son is the fact that when somebody decides that they want to go into treatment and they want recovery, they're really making the equivalent decision of they're going to climb Mount Everest. And there's a very good reason why there's only been 4,000 people that have made that ascent over the years. And that's because there's just so much to manage in doing so. In fact, if you were to make that trek, you'd have over 85 different things that you'd have to manage. No one could possibly do that alone. And that's why it takes a team. On average, it takes a team of 13 people to make that ascent for just one person. And recovery is just the same way. They've got just a boatload of things to manage. Nobody can do that alone. They need a team of people. Most importantly, family, community, spiritual guidance, coach, and they need compassion and understanding. And that's the only way that they're going to get through. And so I'd like to end today with encouraging all of you to, if you do know a loved one, someone, or a friend, or you've got a buddy with a daughter or whatever, a son who's struggling with this, I'd like to have you take one of these chips here. Whoa, what do we do here? All right. So I'd like to offer you one of these chips as inspiration. I'd like to have you take one, put it in your pocket, and the next time this comes up in discussion, or you meet someone who's struggling with this, pass them the chip and let them know you're on their team and you wish them the best. Thank you.